Todd, welcome to the Hospitality Heroes. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Seb. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, in short, give us your elevator pitch.
All all right, I can do that. I started BridgePoint Ops a few months ago, really with the passion to bridge the gap between restaurant operations and usable technology. Um, there's lots of technology out in the restaurants right now, and really restaurant operators are getting overwhelmed by tools. They're fragmented. There's confusing implementation, tech that really doesn't align with real world problems. And we have tech vendors who are coming into the restaurant market who they really struggle to understand the way restaurants are set up. They're having a hard time scaling and getting through the sales cycle, especially in franchised restaurant systems. So you end up having failed pilots, underutilized tools and platforms, and frustrated teams on both ends. What we're really looking to do is bring clarity and alignment because we can speak both operations and technology. We have experience on both the restaurant operations side and we can help the two company or the two sets of customers here succeed so that there's smarter technology decisions on both ends that solve real world problems in the restaurants.
That's an important piece that you mentioned at the end there because, somebody can know how to run a restaurant, but they're not the most tech savvy. And some people, they understand the tech. And that's the ironic thing about technology. Sometimes it's supposed to be making our lives easier, but sometimes when it's done by somebody who's just really into the tech or like a software engineer, but they don't really understand how the bigger picture of how workflow is, how things actually are in a restaurant, and how it will actually be implemented by the user. If it's all theory, then it ends up sometimes slowing things down and causing more of a problem. So, before we get into like how you solve these issues and bridge the gap between operations and technology in the hospitality industry, how did you get into this?
Well, it's interesting. I tell everyone this is a culmination of a lot of my experiences, and frankly, I got into consulting through a number of people who have looked at me and said, you should really be consulting because of everything you've done. So I started in the restaurant industry. I tell everyone at 2 years old because I'm not that old, but I spent 34 years with McDonald's. I started when I was 15 years old. I've done everything you possibly could do in a McDonald's restaurant. I'm a Hamburger University graduate. I have been a multi-unit supervisor. In 1999, Y2K came along and everyone had to change computer systems. So I got into restaurant technology at that point. I'm so old that I started working for McDonald's before they ever thought about taking credit cards, when drive-throughs were only
Hmm.
about 50% of the business. And a POS system was this small computer on the front counter that you just help you calculate orders. You didn't have any of the other tech that was around it. So I've seen restaurant technology evolve basically from the ground up. I know how it's used because of my experience in it, and then in my relationship with the McDonald's Corporation, I tested hardware, I tested software for them. I was part of a team that helped develop the OTP program, which is their operations technology professional, where they have in-house trained techs to deal with equipment breakdowns and technology failures. So I've helped develop those kind of programs, and I've won a couple of national awards doing that. So, this started me down the path of I know how restaurants run, I know how to lead people, I know how to use technology effectively in the restaurant, manage and deployments and rollouts, give feedback on technology. And I became well enough known that PAR Technologies came calling and said, "Hey, yeah, at 50 years old, would you like to switch careers?" And I said, "Yeah,
Hmm.
let's do this." So I jumped over to the vendor side of technology. And I became a global account manager for McDonald's eventually, which was my first foray into sales and account management. But my leadership continued to grow, and I ended up taking over with a team of account managers, all of the existing business in PAR, all the hardware, software accounts. And it was a big task, and we were tasked with really, making sure restaurants signed up for franchisees signed up with the rollouts that the corporation had approved, doing contract renewals, doing cross sell and upsell, and eventually became the interim CRO for a couple of months. And then there was a reorg that happened, as happens often in some of these corporate tech companies. And I found myself for the first time in a lot of years without a job. At that point, I had worked for only two companies in my career, and I did what any rational human being would do. I took a couple of months off and enjoyed a nice Wisconsin spring, and hooked up with a small startup company that was working with AI, and worked with them for a while and learned a lot of lessons about what tech companies um, think about as they come into the restaurant market, and how they need to be educated in the way the restaurants consume technology and use technology. So it was a great learning lesson. We parted ways in February, and as I was looking around, that's where I got some of those kicks in the rear end to go ahead and start consulting. So that's what we've been doing, and it's been amazing, talking to people and hearing the problems that they're encountering and being able to provide some solutions. And the restaurant tech space is still very hot. There's lots of innovation that's happening. It's happening with a lot of these smaller companies, but those are the smaller companies that really need the guidance as they're working into the market, and how their technology should be uh, deployed and then scaled.
Amazing. So you're obviously coming into your consulting work with a huge, long and I may say illustrious background in corporate America and with a lot of experience. You're not, there's a lot of people who start a consultancy, especially now, where I don't know, right out of college or something. You've handled all parts of in hospitality from global sales and technology implementation and leading teams. And so, yeah, if I'm looking for a consultant, I'm definitely going to someone like you. Um, so I have a few questions based on the things you brought up.
Yeah.
Um, One would be is let's say I really know nothing about this. What are some of the problems that you solve in restaurants? I'm assuming, I don't know if restaurants the only audience. Are you working more for the tech companies that are developing tech solutions for hospitality, or are you working more on the restaurant side and helping them implement it? I think when most, backing up for just a moment, I think when most people think of hospitality tech, they just think POS system or, whatever. A few different machines that are used on site. Maybe take us through a little bit of the actual uh, problems you're solving and, what kind of tech you're using to solve those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So a whole lot of questions in one there.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, we tend to do that here.
yeah, no worries. So I think it's important to talk about what is hospitality tech right now. And the bottom line is you don't have restaurant operations or even hospitality operations these days without technology. Technology has permeated the operations so much that it's symbiotic. You don't have one without the others. If your technology fails, your operations are going to fail. So in the space of restaurants, technology has become very broad. The POS system is what I would call the heart of the restaurant technology stack. It has to be open. It has to be able to be integrated to. It needs to do some very basic functions. POS has become very commoditized. Yes, there are a lot of different POSs out there. All of them claim to be better than the other. And the answer is, yeah, it depends. It depends on what you're doing and what you're willing to do for the POS system, for you using your POS system. They've become increasingly complex with KDS or KVS screens. They become delivery systems for drive-throughs. You don't function without a good POS these days, and if your POS is down, then your operations are down. Um, Credit card processing has become part of the tech stack. Like I said, when I started with McDonald's, everyone laughed to think you might take credit cards someday, and now businesses are taking it's 70 to 80% of their businesses through credit card or online ordering. Online ordering is the next part of this tech stack that really got pushed forward by the pandemic. Before the pandemic, online ordering was a nice to have. During the pandemic, it became a need to have. Um,
Yeah, and actually, one question, I was actually
yeah,
talking to a gentleman yesterday, and the bagel shop, and I looked at their website. It's a little dated, but they have a place to order online on the site. But he's telling me they're revamping the whole online ordering. Why isn't it enough for people to just have a website? Or is there more to it? Or third-party apps are becoming more the popular thing, like, Uber Eats or where do you see the online ordering space going?
Online ordering is about convenience. So it's really, without knowing what his website looked like, is it really doing what he needs to drive orders and to drive orders to the right products that are on that website, right? Many restaurants make mistakes in terms of the products that they feature. Instead of featuring the most profitable products that they sell, they will sometimes focus on a wide variety of things that they have, some which make money and some that don't. Um, the interesting thing about this industry is that know there there are so many ways to get to the end goal, the right number, that ultimately you have to as a consultant, or if you're a salesperson coming in with technology, you have to understand what problem they're trying to solve. You have to ask a lot of whys. So if what is it that they're trying to achieve with that website, and then how can you help them get to the right answer for themselves? So again, going back to that example, there's a lot of considerations. How is the delivery being handled? What is the most cost-effective way for them to be able to do that? Going through the marketplace, and some of these delivery companies, there's some pretty large fees that are charged in that. How do we pass those along to the customer, or do we eat some of those fees? There's lots of decisions to be made. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Now I didn't really work in a restaurant before these things, but I do remember when I worked in a restaurant about 10 years ago on the Upper West Side, like it was a tech platform called Breadcrumb
Okay.
was essential. And everyone was just, it seemed like it had just recently been implemented because people were still figuring it out. That was like where you would assign the table. It is now called, I just looked it up, Lightspeed Restaurant,
Okay.
Uspeed. That's now what it's called.
Yeah.
And it can make things much more efficient. Like that's where you're putting, which table number ordered what things, and you know, it's basically how you organize, you know, uh, when you're collecting, when you're making, when you're printing out that receipt, not the receipt, when they come with the check, with the
Right.
bill, um, how do you know it's accurate? It's because of what they put into that system. I think where people get frustrated is where, there's too many steps, there's too many
Yeah.
buttons to push. There's too many things because in a restaurant, it's especially during the busy time, it's stressful. Things are moving fast. Customers are impatient. Lots of stuff is going on in the kitchen at once, and like you don't have time to be just like, you know, pressing all these buttons, right? Like, how have you seen the new tech simplify workflow?
Well, and that's really the interesting part about this, Ev, is that, one of the things restaurant tech vendors forget is who is their end audience, who's the consumer of the tech that they're building. And I love my brothers and sisters in the hospitality industry. I was one of them, right? But to your point, simple is better in terms of how this works in their workflow, right? So, when tech is being designed and when UIs are being designed, you know, that is one of the key things that needs to happen, and it's really one of the key ways that I would filter, a vendor that is coming into a restaurant. I would look at how well does it work in my workflow, and how easy is it for my people to use. If it's something that requires a lot of fidgeting around to get right, or oh, if I just enter it this way, it'll work. The restaurant people are not dumb. They will find that way to work around it and make and use the system as they want, maybe not as it was intended.
Hmm.
So you have to design that system to be uh, so intuitive that it just makes it a part of their job. When restaurant vendor or when tech vendors build technology, they want the people who have to use it to fall in love with it, to make the statement to their operator, if you take this piece of a technology out of my restaurant, I'm going to quit because it's going to make my job that much harder. And truly good restaurant technology is invisible. It's invisible to the guests,
Hmm.
it's invisible to the crew people because they're just so used to using it. And it's invisible to the managers because they're getting all the reports and everything they need to make timely decisions on the profitability and operations of that restaurant.
I love what you said, that really good technology is invisible. I think that's exactly right. When people focus too much on the new system, I just think of that. I've mentioned it here on the show before, but if anyone has ever watched The Office, there's this funny episode where they try to implement this online system and make everything high tech, but it just keeps causing problems and slowing everything down and just becoming too much disproportionate focus is being put on this new, everyone getting on this new system. That's like bad tech. When it's really good, it's simple, it's in the background, and it's making things more efficient. People enjoy using it, and no one necessarily really notices it.
Right.
Um, a couple more questions. So one I have is, I think when I think of hospitality tech, there's three main goals that most tech solutions are coming to solve, and one is cost saving, efficiency, and then maybe enhancing guest experience or wow factor. What are a few things you're seeing that might do any one or a couple of those things?
Yeah, so you're speaking my language because I truly believe there's three buckets that restaurant technology has to hit. It has to save the operator money or make the operator money. That's one bucket. It has to make the crew or manager's job easier or at least more enjoyable, or it has to make the guest experience better. So, when you start talking about the different tech that's out there, you would like to have tech that hits more than one of those buckets. So, people will look at loyalty systems as one of again, another thing that the pandemic really pushed forward. Those are systems that should make the guest experience better if they're getting rewarded for, buying something more often at a specific restaurant. It should make the operator more money because it should increase the top line sales, which should fall to the bottom line. Does it necessarily make the crew or manager's job easier? Probably not.
Yeah, it can make more inefficiency. You know, how many times people were coming with like points to redeem, and it was
Yeah.
just a mess sometimes. Yeah,
And questions, and if the system's not working right, it can actually make the manager's job harder because it creates guest unhappiness.
right.
So that's the fine line that you have to walk through it. It's really the measure that I look at. And I can point back in my career, I've seen some bad tech installed that cost restaurants thousands of dollars in installation and then never got used because it was just over engineered, and frankly, the crew people just worked around it. They didn't use it. So,
Which
uh,
is terrible because, it's a low margin business,
it,
hospitality. So
it,
it's a big challenge to get them to implement new tech.
yeah.
It really better deliver.
So it is such a good point, and it's a point that I try to talk to every one of my vendors, is that there's two things I think every tech vendor ought to do. One, every tech vendor should go work a shift in their customer's shoes. Not the salespeople. It would be helpful, but the people who are designing that product should go out and see what problem they're trying to solve with the
A
tech.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
The other thing every restaurant tech vendor ought to do is they should take a lesson in restaurant economics. They should walk through what the restaurant's P&Ls look like, because we have a lot of tech vendors that are coming into the marketplace with backgrounds from Microsoft and Google, and their backgrounds are selling to large corporations and being able to sell these very expensive products without activation. And then they come to the restaurant market. They have these really big stars in their eyes. They're saying 100,000 restaurants in the US. What if I just got a fraction of those? And what if I can charge them $500 a month for my product? Because
Mhm.
if I theoretically believe my product's going to save them, $1,000 a month, they should be willing to pay $500 a month for that product. And the answer is no, that's not the
Mhm.
way the restaurants work. Look at their P&Ls, look at how they make money. And if you want to really succeed in this market, you will have proven ROI. You will have a pricing philosophy that matches what the restaurants do, and you will make your money on volume, not necessarily on unit economics.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point. And I think that's why a lot of, not all, like probably not POSs, but a lot of like loyalty programs and QRs, and I think a lot of them are low cost monthly things for that reason. And I think understanding the P&L and the numbers that, and what the margins look like for the restaurants you're selling to is so important. And probably the tech solution that you come up with, you probably have to determine what type of restaurant, because maybe depending on what it is, it might not be a fit for the local fast food chain, or it might not be a fit for the very high-end upscale restaurant. Maybe it's, you have to identify your target market
Yep.
and what type of establishment it would be profitable for.
Yep.
Um, so, I had a question also about AI.
Yeah.
Obviously that's what everyone's talking about now, and most tech is AI now. And I remember reading an article over 10 years ago, way before ChatGPT, that said something like AI isn't going to lose jobs in the hospitality, or I think it specifically said fast food world. On the contrary, it's going to create more jobs because, like, as an example, if you had a robot serving you the hamburger, who's going to be who's going to be like fixing that robot, maintaining that robot? I don't know. This was like, 10 years ago. So,
Yeah.
question, what have you seen? Obviously, restaurants, for all the reasons we already described about how much pressure there is day to day, I think that it's an industry that changes slowly.
Yes.
What, but as you see things that are coming down the pipeline, what are your predictions about how AI will continue? How has it disrupted the restaurant industry, and how do you think it will continue to disrupt?
So it's interesting, right? I think there's a vast distinction between AI and robotics. Robotics is something that I do believe will replace people in some cases. You've seen robots now that can, make French fries. They can make salads. There's a lot of innovation happening in robotics. And will robotics change the restaurant industry? Perhaps eventually. There is a cost to putting that in, and as the cost of labor continues to go up, there'll be a tipping point where putting these robotics into the restaurants will make sense to the restaurant operators to save them money in the long run. And that, yeah, will it create some jobs as far as programming and maintaining these robots? Yeah, the restaurant industry is hard. Equipment breaks, robots will break as well. AI another is a completely different subject in my mind. You're seeing the applications of AI most often right now in back office systems, helping with making better projections, making ordering products easier. You
Inventory management.
yeah, it's what AI is really good at is consuming a large amount of data and and giving a summary or good recommendations out of that. So the back office companies are the ones that are using it the most. I walked through the restaurant show in Chicago, NRA, in May, and it was amazing how many people had AI on their backdrops. It's the buzzword right now. I think we've only hit the tip of the iceberg of what AI might do for us. I know loyalty programs are talking about using it or using it in the way that they push notifications and offers to people. I think you see a lot of it generating marketing for the restaurant industry. Good AI, in my opinion, for the restaurant industry will make managers and crew people better, not replace them. So they'll give it'll do the tasks that are mundane and be able to be done by computers or by AI, and let the restaurant workers focus on what they're supposed to be doing, which is giving great hospitality and food to their guests. That should make them more efficient and should make their jobs easier in the long run. I think there's a couple of really big visions out there for AI. The question I have for all the AI vendors, and there's a ton of them coming in, a lot of them in voice applications. You know, the questions I have: at what cost? So, will the cost structure of AI and how it's being used be able to be supported by the restaurants? And will it actually make such a difference for those restaurants that they'll pay that cost? I think we're going to see AI continue right now, AI to me is much more a technology in search of a problem as opposed to a technology being built to solve a problem.
Mm.
And that to me is the underlying side of where AI is right now. That will change quickly, and it will come down to, is it a cost that the restaurants will bear? Um, I think it's going to be an interesting thing. As costs come down, it'll be a technology that continues to be built out and used and adopted by more than just the innovators that are out there.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Once it becomes cheaper to do that and it really does solve a problem, then it will definitely be implemented more at scale. And it's the hope here at Hospitality Heroes that as technology evolves, AI and all of that, that there'll be more room for restaurants, even smaller organizations that were previously hamstrung by just so much, just lack of bandwidth to now be able to focus more on the guest experience. That's what we're really about. The wow factor, making memorable moments. So as we close, I like to ask my guests some rapid fire
All
questions.
right, let's do it.
Okay, so Todd, what is a must-have when you go to a restaurant?
Oh, what is a must-have?
In the guest experience overall, not
In the guest
necessarily food.
experience is a friendly, personable server. I don't care if you're at the front counter of a fast food restaurant in the drive-through, or you're a waiter or waitress at a five-star diner. I want somebody who is excited to wait on me and wants to be personable, and that to me, that's the hospitality experience. It's not it's the food is part of it, of course. Great food always wins, but great service outweighs great food, in my opinion.
For sure. And what about, and this might be the flip side of the other side of the coin, but what's your pet peeve? Or maybe it could be about bad service, but also maybe it's a tech issue or a process issue. What's your pet peeve when you go out to eat?
My pet peeve is a dirty restroom. If I go into a restaurant and the restroom is dirty, I will wonder what the kitchen looks like. I will wonder what the seat dining area looks like. It's that and first impressions. When you pull up to a restaurant, are there fingerprints all over the windows, or is there trash all over the lot? That speaks to my McDonald land experience as a supervisor coming to the restaurants. I would pull in, and those would be the first things I would see, and they would be the things that would either light me up or give me cause to praise the manager and crew people who are on duty, because the outside was clean, the fingerprints were off the windows, and the bathrooms were clean. That is the first impression I'm always looking for.
Funny, I just have my own silly kind of rule, and it's not just restaurants, but I judge a company by the bathrooms.
Yeah,
I go to the bathroom anywhere and it's a mess. I'm like, what else in their business is a mess?
exactly.
Um, and
Exactly.
finally, what's your favorite food to either cook or eat?
Oh my gosh. I am a little bit of a foodie. I consider myself a cook, not a baker, because baking is science and cooking is art, and I
Yes.
can never make the same recipe over again. So if I was inviting Zev to come over for a Packers football game this fall, that's my favorite thing to do, is to cook game day food. It would probably be either grilling out, and in Wisconsin, it's brats and burgers, or in the fall it might be chili. Those are my things to do. I think cooking, it's like hospitality. That's the way people show their love to other people, is how they cook and how they feed them. So yeah, I'd show you a little love, Zev, and cook you a good chili and serve you some really good side dishes, and we'd enjoy a game together.
Love that. Where could people find you, learn more, anything new you'd want to promote?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you can grab me, of course, on LinkedIn. My company is BridgePoint Ops, and I have a website. It's bridgepointops.com. It is in the process of being revamped, so if you visit it right away, it will look much better in a couple of weeks. And really, I'm looking. We talked about who's my audience. I will work either with tech vendors who are looking to break into the restaurant market and need somebody to help them either design their product to meet the restaurant needs, or strategy around go to market and the like, because I do have this vast experience in restaurant operations and technology and sales. But I will also work with small brands who are looking to unify their tech stack, small restaurants who are looking to unify their tech stack and need to go. I do offer fractional services, but most of what I do is do with, teach you how to do instead of do for. And that's an important distinction. Um, and I'm just looking to connect. I'm really looking to connect right now with restaurant operations people. One, because you're my people, and two, because I want to hear the problems you guys are having, so I can help bring the right tech over to you as well.
Yeah, and that'd be incredibly valuable to the tech founders too, because they could pick your brain. You know everything. You've seen it all. You know, you've been on the ground. Todd, this was really a pleasure. Thank you so much, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Seth.